Welcome to another episode of Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Nikki C. Super excited to be here today. This is brought to you by BALM Global and the Connected Leaders Academy. And we have a very special guest today. She's from our BLM community, Business Leaders Network with J.R. Spears. And I'm super excited to be able to share what she has going on. And just trying to pull it up here because this is life and I had to rearrange how I am recording today, but we're gonna make it work. So excited. So Melicia is from Canada. So obviously, we are international in our communities. She is a holistic health practitioner. She's a sex positive media personality, sex and intimacy coach, bringing you from trauma to pleasure. Milica Jelenic facilitates you to have greater health vitality, sexual vitality, and relationship vitality by drawing from her vast toolkit that includes biophysics practice, somatic body work, and a variety of other modalities as well. You need to check her out, but she's here today, so super excited to have her. Let's bring her right on. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Nikki. I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I am well. We were just chatting right before our recording, found out that our children are just amazing and what they have going on, but we are talking to you today and you're tuning in from Canada. That's
I
correct.
am. I am.
Awesome.
Yeah. So actually, kind of just north of you, really. I'm probably closer to you than I am to some other Canadians that I know because I think I'm only like maybe a 10-hour drive from you.
Like nine
Maybe I don't
hours.
know.
Nine,
Yeah,
10
nine or
if you
10.
have to take some
Yeah,
breaks, right?
yeah, for sure. So that's kind of cool.
That is awesome. Well, we have been in community for almost 8 months now, I believe, something like that. Not sure.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
has been an absolute pleasure being in our masterminds together and just knowing about what you do and what you have going on. But let's let our audience know who Melica is. Where did this all stem from? A little bit about your background and how you got into the space.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a big story, but I'm going to try and keep it short. So I think where ultimately like the work that I do came from was I have massive curiosity, and I always had a feeling like there's got to be alternatives to things out there. Like I was always just curious, and I think I was watching like Geraldo Rivera one day, and somebody was being interviewed about past lives, and I was like 16 years old, and I went, "What is that? Like, I never heard of that before." And I asked my mom, I'm like, "What is that?" My mom's like, "Oh, it's like this, and this." I'm like, "How do you know? And like, who can I go to? And like, who does weird work?" And then she started introducing me to all these people that she'd hidden me from forever, who were like energy workers and did all this like wonderfully fun stuff. Opened my world, and and then I started becoming really curious. So I started studying different things. So I think it really started with, I'm pretty sure it was actually Geraldo, but but prior to that, I was also curious about sex, and we had this amazing woman. I don't know if she's still alive, in Canada, who had a show called Sunday Night Sex Show with Sue. And as a 12-year-old, I was sneaky, and I would listen to this radio show and learn all about sex. And she had the tips and tools, and she also made sex very normal, which was great for me because I was super curious kid. Like I knew stuff I probably shouldn't have known, but I did because I was so curious. But also she was a nurse, and so she came from it from a very technical standpoint. And she also made people not wrong for any of their sexual preferences, which was very cool. She's all about consent. She taught a lot about things that I think are super valuable. And so I think I carried a lot of what she taught into not just my practice with health, but also my practice with sex and intimacy coaching, because there are some fundamentals that I think are important, like consent and curiosity and communication. Those are like really key to me. And she did talk about a lot of that, even like, 40 years ago. So it's kind of like been a merging of a lot of things for a really long time. And so I kind of bring, when people come to me, I kind of bring like I could bring this like vast amount of different information from different angles. And people are usually confused, like, how do you know about that? I'm like, I've literally been studying my whole life. And I love learning. So I'm always studying something new and trying to like always keep up with what's up, what's new, what's going on. And just like learning things on the cutting edge, because why not?
Why not, right? That is so awesome. So when you went to school, going through high school and things like that, was that like you already knew that that's what you wanted to go into, or did you go into something else?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do in high school, Nikki, was be a vet. And my dad was adamant that that was like a stupid life choice. And I was like, oh, thanks, Dad. And whatever it was, it sent me off on a tangent, and which was okay. I ended up going in. I studied psychology, which actually brought me into a lot of different things that actually, to get through psychology, I did a few things to graduate. I studied Russian because why not? And the Russian was actually very easy for me to study. My father's Slavic, and the language and the writing, the Cyrillic alphabet is very similar. So I kind of had an edge there. Studied Russian just for fun. And then I studied all things sexual related that had to do with psychology. So any specialty classes that they had about human sexuality or anything like that, I dove in. And I didn't specifically go in there to become a sexologist or anything like that. I actually didn't even know that title existed at the time. I was just gathering all the courses that I thought were interesting that would get me through university, because I really didn't like reading and it was like torture. So I needed to like read the things that would keep me going. And that's what kept me going.
Wow. Wow. I didn't even know that psychology. I actually took psychology, obviously, for my business major as well. I love everything psychology and how the brain works and how just, how thoughts are put together and how things are just triggered. But you were very specific on what would keep you at the highest level with what interests you. And I really wish people would do that. Like find what interests you when you're on these journeys and make a life out of it. So you go in, obviously you graduate, you get your degree. What comes next?
I become a nanny because that's what you do with a psych degree. So I was actually a nanny for 3 years and I loved it. It was one of my favorite things I ever did. And what I realized, actually, I was looking back on this a few weeks ago. What I realized was everything about being a nanny is such a contribution to what I do now with the work that I do. I was teaching a workshop a couple of weeks ago with my mom, and we were doing a trauma release day. And during it, at the end, I was explaining to the people how the polyvagal response system works, and how one of the responses we have is that in order to get ourselves to calm, we need to learn how to play. And then we can interact with our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system can start to relax and go calm, so we can get out of fight or flight and we can calm down. Or we can, if we're really up there and we're in freeze mode, we can get into play. Then we can get out of all of those like depression and different things, connect with people, and then get back to calm. And so we had 18 people in that class, and over half of them, as adults, had no idea how to play. And I absolutely know how to play. Like I have puppets like everywhere in my house. So I play with, and so I realized that actually one of the skills that I brought through was, as a nanny, I knew how to play, and the parents thought that that was kind of like a really cool skill that an adult had. They hired me because I knew how to play. I didn't realize that that was a skill. I really thought everybody knew how to play. But it's actually like a healing modality to know how to play. So being a nanny was a huge contribution to be able to teach people how to calm down and learn how to play. It's just very normal for me.
That is very interesting because we go into this world, right? We think that we have a clear idea of what we want. Some of us don't have any idea, but those that, start taking a path and you reach these goals, you get to where you think you're going to be, and then life kind of throws you something different. So what type of mindset that you have to have, and I'm glad that you actually took it and that it was beneficial, but what mindset do you have to have, and what is that teaching? What was that teaching moment for you, that said, okay, I did this, it has helped me. Now, where do I go from here after the being a nanny for 3 years?
Yeah. So then I have a bit of a sad spot, which was actually a contribution to my life too. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but there was, I experienced like a massive trauma to my body, that was, uh, we'll just say a violence. There was a violence into my body by some people. And as a result, I went into a lot of personal healing. I'd already started on my own healing journey, but that really was like, I know this is going to sound really weird, but it was actually one of, it was a strangely great gift in that it was like, it was this platform for me to be able to go, whoa, that I am not going to be a victim here. And I was determined to not be a victim. I was determined not to be stuck. And so I found like I became super diligent at looking for any and every resource that would get my life back. And there was no way I was going to let a situation that lasted maybe a few hours of my life, I wasn't going to let that few hours dictate who I was and how I was going to live and who I was going to show up as. Instead, I've looked at it as like, what am I going to use this for? How can I use this to actually create a greater life? It took me a while because I went through the sadness and the depression, all of that stuff, and had a lot of great resources that also, like, I had a lot of great support, and that support were people that then I was inspired by, and I learned a lot of their techniques and would have them as teachers, and then I would bring that to my clientele as well. So I started my practice I started my practice quite young, and then then I had a time where I kind of needed to take a break when I was doing when I kind of went through the trauma. I needed to take a bit of a break, and then I went back to it. And I think all the different people I've gone to for my own help have contributed to the work that I bring to the table now. So I've had a lot of different people contributing to my healing and a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's been helpful too, because I am a big fan of looking at things from every possible angle. I'm a big fan of like, how can I get out of judgment as much as possible and find love and bring love as much as possible to whether it's, people who are feeling a lack of love, or whether it's bringing love to yourself or feeling love and connection to whatever you feel like source or creator is. Like, all of that, I think, is key to sanity and healing. I went
Yeah.
on a tangent there, Nikki.
No, it was exactly what we needed to hear. I mean, we go through some stuff in life, whether it's as traumatic or something that can be a little bit more subtle, but we kind of sometimes stay in that space. But you had the tenacity and you had the determination to say, you know what, how can I use this experience to not only rebuild my life the way I want it to be, and not let it identify me or take over me or take my power. So I just want to say kudos to you for that. It takes a strong person to be able to do it. It's not easy, and I'm sure it's not. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have to put yourself in that mindset of, we still have a life to live. We still have, future to foresee. How do we want to live that future? Were those some of the thoughts that you had going into making those decisions, and
Yeah.
really building out your practice and even taking a break? Like, what were some of the leadership that you had to do within your own life to really make it happen?
So I think the first thing was what I needed to do was make a decision to live, because I kind of went into a slump where I was a little suicidal for a bit. So the first choice was like seeing that I might actually have value to bring to the planet. And sometimes when there's been big traumas, or you've been told in your life, or you've been raised by people who have put you down, you don't even know you have value. So it can take a little while until you go, wait a second, I'm not a pile of poo. Like, I can actually bring value to the planet. I can bring value to people, and I can, maybe if I can do this for me, maybe I can help somebody else out so they don't want to be suicidal, or they don't, end up in relationships that are super destructive. And so the leadership for me was, I needed to lead me, number one, and then and also look to people who I thought were really good examples of people who walk their walk. And if they could walk their walk and they could change their own lives, and I was like, okay, you did it, and you're showing me some tools, I can do this, and then maybe I can show other people tools. And sometimes I've adjusted the tools I've learned. That whole concept of take what you like, leave the rest, that's kind of what I've done, and like done my own thing with it. But I think in order to, for me, what I believe is, in order to lead, you have to lead you first, and you have to be willing to let somebody else lead you as well. Like, you have to find mentors and teachers that can lead you, because it's very hard to be a leader if you've never seen good leadership.
Mm-hmm. I believe that to be true. And then you can't be a good leader if you're not building other great leaders based on your experience and what you have. So I think that's great information. Thank you so much. This has been definitely an eye-opener on so many levels, and we've only been chatting for about 16 minutes, but we are going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to our sponsor, and we're going to come back, and we're going to actually dive deeper into what you do, how you do it, not all the house, but how you do it, who you work with, and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Welcome back. We are here with Melicia, all the way from Canada, and we have been talking about her journey into becoming the podcast host or TV show host of The Pleasure Zone, and some of her journey. So we're going to go right into it. So what are some of the services, which I know there are many, and you're just a wealth of knowledge. I've seen you in action as far as getting some great information, but what are some things that you work on, and who are the different types of people that you work with? Because I know you deal with like couples, you deal with individuals, and there's some other stuff in there. I don't want to say it all. So
Yeah, so let's start with the couples and individuals, because I think that's where a lot of people go first when they think of sex and intimacy coaching. I also want to be really clear, sex and intimacy coaching is not prostitution, because I've had a lot of people think that it is. And that is like, oh yeah, Nikki, I got some calls and it's freaky. But I'm like, okay, let's be really clear. This is not what I coach. Like, if you had a coach in baseball, what do they do with you? Like, I don't know. So it's different. So what I do with people is I actually give them tools so that they can have better intimacy in their relationships. And so what I usually do with couples is an evaluation of where they're at. And a lot of times there's like a miscommunication going on. And I always find it adorable when couples come together. Well, usually I do like interviews separately, and then I do interviews together. And the things that they're like really shy about saying in front of their partners, like, I really want to do A, B, C, and D, things that are what I call the big ask. Like, the big ask are sometimes these things that you've kept so secret inside of you that you really want to try. And it could be sexual. It could just be intimate. It could even be like things that the average person might go, oh yeah, that's not a problem. But for them, it's like really scary to ask for. It's being able to have people be able to feel free and vulnerable enough to be with their partners so that they can receive their partners. So yeah, I work with whether, however you identify, it's not really relevant to me how you identify. I'll work with anybody, because intimacy is intimacy. Sex is sex. It's our bodies all like it. So it's, well, not actually, I don't want to say not all bodies like it. There are people who are asexual and that's not their thing. And I totally honor that. So I think what I really love to do is assist people with learning how to communicate with their partners in the way that their partner can hear them. Because there's one thing communicating and saying what you like, but then your partner doesn't hear you and you're like, I said that 72 times. How did you not hear me? And you're like, and you get frustrated because maybe you're speaking different languages. Maybe your love languages are different. So, and maybe the dialects within your love languages are different. I love working with the love languages as well, because there's a lot of things that can be brought to the table with relationships. So I look at those things. I look at, I have a little list on my website called the do's, don'ts, maybes list. It's pretty vanilla. It's not going to go extreme on anything, but it helps people kind of navigate and negotiate like some of the things maybe they haven't thought of, like locations. Like, hey, we might always do things in this location in the bedroom. What if we switched it up to the kitchen counter? What would that feel like, right? Like, it can just be that it could be that random, but it can switch things up totally. So it's kind of bringing a little bit more fun and creativity. And sometimes people don't have the ideas and they're in a rut. And so it's to bring that to the table. And what I find is I have a lot of people who come to me who are thinking that they have no sex drive. There's something wrong with them. Even when they come with health, one of the top things that they'll say is like, I've lost my sex drive, or I've lost my motivation for life. And a lot of times those are interconnected. And then I have men who are like, I have low testosterone. I'm like, well, do you? Let's find out. Like, have you been tested? Or is there something going on emotionally that maybe you're feeling rejected repeatedly by your partner, so you don't feel like they are going to be there for you, right? So there's often many different angles to like what's going on. And I like to look at all the possible angles to find solutions for people. So I do that with coaching, with speaking with them, trying to develop a bigger story of what's going on. Sometimes I'll include things like giving them a remedy, like a homeopathic remedy, or I might do body work on them. So I do some somatic body work that I basically move the body to release stress and tension. And when that happens, sometimes emotions come out. So I've had people on my table where I might move their leg and then all of a sudden they're like bawling their eyes out because it reminds them of something, and it's like their body is releasing trauma. So, and I've had it too where I've held a person's leg, just held it, and they started crying going, I've never felt so loved. So it just depends on what bodies need. And I think we've had, like, our bodies have had so much violence done, whether it's, environmental violence or between people, like there's so much violence going on. We could use some love, we could use some kindness. And that's really what I like to bring to the table in all the different modalities that I bring. So whether it's through the touch work that I do with energy work or with body work, I also do something called Radionics, which is like broadcasting frequencies to bodies. So that uses technology to do that. And then like a variety of other things. So it just really depends. And mindset shifts, I think, are really key as well. So I've learned a lot of different tools from different mindset teachers. So sometimes one mindset tool won't work, but another one will. So I like to be able to pull from my different resources on that as well.
Wow. A lot, again, to unpack. And I'm just enjoying every single bit of it. And again, I have been on the forefront of listening to some of these things on our masterminds. And that's why I love being in community with people that know things that you don't, right? It's always amazing. So when you, so we talked about the couple levels. What are individuals coming to you for on top of, sex or something else that's happening in their lives?
Yeah. So a lot of time what individuals come for is sometimes there's been an injury. Sometimes it's an old injury. So a lot of people around my area know me as the person who works on bodies for injuries. So like if you've gone to the chiropractor for 5 years, and I love chiropractors, by the way, if you've gone to the chiropractor for 5 years and you're wondering, why do I have to keep going back to the chiropractor for life? The work that I do actually trains your body to get out of the habits, the different habits that keep you in pain. And so if your body gets these lessons while I'm working on you, then it learns, and then it learns how to get out of the habits. And then eventually your body is trained to be able to relieve your own stresses. So whether it's like you can learn how to do a movement that will relieve your stress. So the idea behind the body work that I do is for people not to need me anymore. So I think that's also part of what has people attracted to my work. And then they recommend me is because they're like, oh, I went to her for like 6 sessions and I never had to go back. Go there. So sometimes it's more. Some people just come because they like it just feels good and they don't actually have an issue. But it's kind of like how some people will just go to a massage for relaxation. I do have people who come for that as well. But ultimately what I found in my work over the years was there's always been an underlying current that people come that have had some kind of trauma, whether it's been physical, emotional, like religious traumas, financial traumas, like people have they've been in war, there's been some kind of trauma and their body doesn't know what to do with it. And then they have all these health conditions as a result. That super special polyvagal response goes, and we have like different responses in there, whether you're chronically in fight or flight, or whether you're in freeze, or whether you're playing between some of those, creating different health conditions. So a lot of health conditions usually come down to it. I'll ask when people come in, they're like, oh, I have really high blood pressure. I'm like, okay, cool. So what are you in fight or flight on right now? Like, what are you trying to run away from? Who are you trying to run away from? How long have you been trying to run away from things? And they're like, whoa. I'm like, I know, because your body is actually saying that really loudly. Your body is saying that you're trying to run away from something. So your heart is jacking up really high. Just it's trying to get away. And you're like, yeah, and I'm like, and your adrenals, right? Yeah, and I can't sleep. I'm like, right, because all of these things are connected, and your digestion goes off. And so all of these things are like super connected. And one of the things is that I've not met a person yet in my life who has not experienced some kind of trauma, whether it was little and you were like one person that I worked with for a while, we really dived in to find the trauma, and he was sure he had no trauma. And then we finally realized his biggest trauma was his mom pushed him all the time to be perfect. And that was super traumatizing for him because he could never live up to it. But because it was just the way his mom was, he didn't realize how much of an effect that had on him. And then when he really sat with it and went, oh, that's actually messed up my relationships and my friendships and everything else. It's like, okay, so now that you don't have to be perfect, what would you like to do? And you could almost see the cogs of his brain, right? Like the cogs of your symbol. It's like all these cogs started to come together, and his body could just relax and go, I don't have to be perfect. I am perfect the way I am. Whoa. It's like, whoa. Yeah. So dynamics in relationships change sometimes too when we have those awarenesses, and all kinds of things can happen. It's quite fun.
I love it when it just takes one simple question or a few simple questions to really see it in a bird eye view, to be like, that's what it's been this whole time. If I can just shift, I love that. And sometimes you just need that other perspective. You can't do it yourself, like, because you're so worried about what's going on or what the issues are or what the pain is, that you're not giving yourself a second to really dissect what is happening. And when we do that, and when we have amazing people like Melicia, who has a great program and, all her coaching and what she's doing, that sometimes we just need that other person to kind of give us that nudge that we needed, or that we need to move forward. So that's awesome. Now, with that being said, do you have anything going on right now? Anything special coming up? Tell us a little bit about your show as well.
Yeah. So some of the things I have coming up are workshops in the summer. that I am going to be finalizing dates on. So I've got some one-day workshops for trauma release. I've also got a workshop I'm working with a few other people collaborating to create a weekend. So I have 45 acres of land. I might have mentioned that to you before, Nikki, in the middle of nowhere, Canada, and lots of trees, like 35 acres of trees. And so we're having a weekend where people come, they can camp out. We have a cabin, and we're going to be offering a weekend of like intensive healing. So when I have dates on that, we're actually working on dates on that on Saturday. So I'll have more information on that coming soon. And other things coming. So I'm, as of July of 2023, the Pleasure Zone will be 9 years old. And I have over, so the Pleasure Zone, I do the show once a week. On Mondays, it's live. And when it goes out live right there and then to a bunch of different platforms. And so I have over 400 episodes of the Pleasure Zone. And like I've tried to look at as many different perspectives on sex and intimacy as I possibly can, looking at things from historical, sociological, anthropological, like the history of sex toys, which I find like all things really fun. So I like dive into the history of everything, the history of like love letters between friends and like all kinds of things that are like, oh, look at that. Look what was going on. And people didn't acknowledge it or whatever was happening historically. So all of that super interests me. Lately, in the last 6 months, I've really focused on bringing information to people about how to get their bodies out of trauma and into pleasure, because I've noticed that is coming up more and more and more, and people are more willing to talk about it. I'm also working on a book related to that as well. So my target for the book is to be done by September. And then I realized as I'm writing it, like, I don't know, you've written a book, right? And you start to get into your story and you're like, wow. And you start processing and your brain's like, oh, how am I going to bring this to the world without like being too messy and like emotional pile of poo? Like, how do I do this and like maintain my cool? So it's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before I comment on that, that is so true. So writing my building a leadership mindset was my corporate America story, my triumph to breaking the glass ceiling and carving the path out for myself because no one was going to give it to me. Right. So that wasn't as emotional, except when I talk about like the courage steps I had to take in order to really believe that I can do that. But I just did a co-authorship, an anthology called Warrior Women, where,
Oh,
people
cool.
know me in our space as professional and, they don't know my deep, dirty laundry and things that I had to go through. So writing that
Oh,
chapter
I want
was,
that book.
yes.
I want your dirty laundry book.
Yeah, it'll come out. I believe it's supposed to launch in May. But
Right.
it's something that I've never talked about in my professional space at all. But it is a part of me and a part of how I was able to really redirect my choices and be where I'm at today. So I can totally get and understand what you're saying. Writing a book is not easy. Only 1% of people in this whole planet out of 8 billion people that we have really go out there and put a book out, whether it's 5 pages or 150 pages, right? 5,000 pages. I don't know what's the largest book. I'm going to have to go research that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. So congratulations on that. I'm excited to definitely, dive deep into your journey, which I'm sure that you probably not have spoken about because you're in the process of writing it and you're like, oh my God, are people going to judge me? Are people going to see me different? Are people, and
Mhm.
sometimes, you know what, we have to get those questions out of our minds and we just have to tell the story because someone needs to hear it. Probably
Yeah.
many, but even if it changes that one person to be able to get the courage to tell their story, it's a domino effect. So kudos to you. Go through the emotions, enjoy the process, and I'm sure it's going to be great. And you're going to be so proud of yourself when you have that book in your hand and you're just feeling it. And that's probably the best part. So I am so happy for you. I did not know you were writing a book.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you and your dirty secrets. You have no idea. I'm like
Yeah.
so in. I'm like, I can imagine, and I'm like so excited to find out what they are.
Yeah, and I'm in a couple other anthologies, which really tells another portion of some trauma, not trauma like per se to me, but just some loss that I had to go through. So just look out. This is a year of anthology. So I think I have like six
Yeah,
or seven coming up and a
that's
few more
amazing.
books of my own. Yeah. So once
Good for
that first
you.
book is out, just be ready because it's going to just take you by storm. And I'm just glad you brought it up and we're talking about it because that really is if you're an entrepreneur and you do not have a book, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, get your book out there, get your story out there, whatever that is. You don't have to tell your life story, your memoir. Just get something out there, your experiences, and then they will start coming out one after the other. And you're going to reach a lot of people with it for sure.
For sure.
So we talked about your book. We talked about your TV show, which congratulations on almost 9 years. That's amazing. I haven't even hit a
Thank
year
you.
yet. So,
It's
but I,
exciting though, right?
yeah, it is.
Almost a
I
year.
love
You've
it.
almost got the year-long baby. I love it.
I know it's just crazy. And you have guests on your show as well. Do you do guests some by yourself? Do you kind of
Mhm.
entwine them? And
Yeah, I do. I do have guests on. I've when I first started, I had this opinion that I had nothing to say, so I had a lot of guests on, and then I started to realize that wait a second, I actually know exactly what these guests are saying, so I'm going to be the expert here. So my show is based more on like the way your show is kind of based on bringing other people to the world. My show is like really about showing my expertise. So a lot of the topics are based on like what I might say or do or talk with a client or different things I've read that I want to share with people. So I do bring on people now more who have expertise in specific areas. And so I talk about like on the pleasure zone, I've had actually somebody else who's in our group in BLM, her name is Trey Murphy. She was on an episode with me and we talked about how when people have had injury, so she works with post-injury people to help them through recovery through different types of movement and exercises and stuff. And it was hilarious because she's like, I was like, so, what could you use to assist you with, say, a partner who has lack of mobility in their legs. And she is so creative. Like she came up with all of the things that you would see in hospitals. Yeah, Trey can turn them into sex toys in a second. It's just awesome. So I love when people can like go a little bit, they can get super creative. They can bring their expertise and they can look at it from like a new perspective. And so yeah, I've had a few people who it isn't their niche to work with sex, but definitely in their practice with their clients, it comes up. So they have these like secret conversations. And so I like to bring those public too.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, absolutely. As entrepreneurs and going into, especially, I work with like startups, like really getting it out there, getting your idea, your vision, having it happen. But again, people don't start because they have trauma or because they have some underlining idea of people are not going to listen to me, right? And again, when I was asked, like, what's your story? My response was, I don't have a story. My publisher, that's what he asked me. What is your story? I said, I don't have a story. He's like, everyone has a story. So
Mm-hmm.
when, starting a business, you're going to be like, okay, well, what do I have to offer? Am I going to be worth whatever it is I'm going to do? Are people going to really buy into either my vision, my product, whatever it is? So that's very important to have to know that and to be able to uh, bring that out, right? Anything. So when you said that, when you questioned it first and then you proved to yourself in action, because at least you took action, right? Some of us, we
Yeah.
ask that question and then we just kind of just tear down the idea and we don't do anything. But you took action and you realize, wow, I have a lot to say and everybody's going to hear it. And I just absolutely love that. So thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you? Email, website, handles. And I know we had your banner up, so I'll throw that up there real quick. There we go.
Yeah, so that's my website, MelicaJelenic.com. If you head over there, at the bottom of that page, you can find a book now link. And there is an option on there for like a 15-minute booking. Those are free. And feel free to book a 15-minute with me if you want to just chat. If you have a specific thing you'd want to look at, you can book more time, but the more time costs. So if you want to just get to know me more on a one-on-one, book a 15-minute and we can see what I can offer you. Or you might have some ideas. Maybe you'd like to be on my podcast. Maybe you're an expert in something that has to do with sex and intimacy as well. And I'd love to have a conversation with you because there's a lot of stuff out there that we haven't even probably touched on.
I love it. And again, she has some stuff coming up this summer. So definitely follow her on what's the best handles to follow you on.
I think probably my Instagram, which is Magical Melicia, and also on, there's a bird outside my window. I just got distracted. But also there is on Facebook, that's probably the one I'm on the most, is probably the two best ways to get a hold of me. And also you can private message me on either of those, IG message or FB Messenger. So if you friend me, it's helpful if you tell me why you're friending me. Send me a note because I got a lot of people who friend me and it's a little bit weird. But if you tell me why you're friending me, or if I recognize you, I will definitely friend you back. But if I don't recognize you and I don't know why you're friending me, I probably won't friend you back.
Oh my God, we're on the same page. I just had to decline about 4 or 5 recently this week, and probably even more. I'm probably just being nice right now. And yeah, that's not a good look, but definitely let her know that you've seen her on BALM podcast, and she'll definitely know that we're connected. But thank you so much, Melicia. You have been absolutely amazing. I love getting to know a little bit more about you. I thought I knew you a lot, but now I have more. So I'm super excited. Can't wait till your retreat, whenever you put out those dates for this summer, because I want to be in Canada. So I want to camp with the girls or whomever is going to be there and, make some memories. Super excited. And do you want to leave our audience with some final words?
Yeah, I think my funnest words to leave you guys with is to remember to stay tuned in to your body and stay turned on.
I love it. Yes, thank you so much. Stay tuned in and turned on. You probably will never forget it. That's a writer downer. You have to look at it every day and just repeat that. Life is just too good to not be turned on about it, right? I love it. Thank you so much, Melicia. You have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining another episode of Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. I'm your host, and as always, have a great day and make it count.